I doubt that many have read the Book of Leviticus. It's one of the books of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. And it's one of those books for us. It's good bedtime reading if you want to go to sleep quickly. But for the Jewish people, it was a book about purity of all kinds. See, once Israel came out of Egypt, purified by going through the Red Sea, they become the people of God. And how do you retain that identity? And what happens if you lose that identity? And what are the characteristics of that identity? You do this, you don't do that. Not just the 10 Commandments, but the many, many laws of Deuteronomy. What do you do if you don't keep them? What happens if you're not the normal Jewish person of Israel? So the book of Leviticus has 2 chapters about leprosy. And leprosy of the body is one thing, and it would be scabs or ulcers or sores or rashes or scratches, anything that's not, we're going to talk about this a lot, normal. So if you have these things, what do? Well, you are thrown out, especially if you do have something that frightens people, because what's not normal is frightening and separating. So how to get back? So you have to cut your hair, and you have torn clothing, and you don't shave your beard, all these things. It's to be different, and you are outside. And when people come clean, you say, come close to you, you say, unclean, unclean, stay away from me. I have ulcers. I am different. I am not normal. And you might get what I have by contact. So it's into that context that Mark, in Mark's gospel, has Jesus meet a leper. And he meets him outside. And Jesus becomes the infinite, divine, of course I want to. Of course I will it. As he is the divine voice of God saying, be still, quiet, which we have seen in past weeks. Now he is the divine God saying, of course I want to. I want you to be who you are. I will cleanse you. And instead of all kinds of purificational rites and prayers and going to the priests and having them examine you, and leprosy was not just of the body. It was of clothing. If you had torn clothes or stains, it was leprosy of the house, leprosy of the walls of the house. If there was mildew or something growing, that was unclean. It wasn't normal. It wasn't orderly, because the center of Israel's identity was cleanliness and orderliness. And that's why there are so many rules and festivals and times to get in touch with the call of cleanliness and orderliness. So then we have Jesus coming as the divine, of course I want to, and instead of going through the sacrificial, a lot of sacrifices for purification and distancing, you have the whole separacy of, I say separacy because it's a leprosy of separation, where loss of blood, then you have to be separated. So anything that's not normal. Well, Jesus is what the sacrifices, what work of the priest used to be, he is the priest, he is the sacrifice, he is the divine. Of course I want to help you be who you are. So that's a little scripture for you, and it's very interesting. And reading Leviticus is, I think it's helpful to understand what is Jesus facing with all the emphasis on orderliness and the Pharisees and scribes keeping everybody in order. Jesus is disorderly, which of course, in Mark's gospel especially, gets him in trouble with the powers who want orderliness. Well, what is that for us? What is our modern leprosy? What leprosy does Jesus come to say, of course I want to help you be who you are? And I was thinking of, there's leprosy of body, which is not a physical thing. So it's leprosy of memories, it's leprosy of family, it's leprosy of relationships, it's leprosy of names. Let's look at those. Because Jesus comes and says, I want you to be who you are. Who tells you you're not normal? Who tells you that your hairstyle is not in? And why? Then you have a leprosy of identity. I am what other people want me to be. Normal is to be different. What if normal and different were the same words? No, they're very different words now. So if you have a funny kind of haircut, you wear this kind of clothing, you have a physical defect, then you are defined by that defect, and what defines you confines you. That's the problem. That the leprosy confined they had the name, you are a leper. So that definition keeps you outside. And that's where Jesus met people, outside. He wasn't allowed inside with the lepers. The lepers were outside. And people take themselves outside because of how they get their definition of themselves. What's family leprosy? Oh, we had a divorce, or gay marriage, or a suicide, or something that's considered very bad. And then you live with that, and you hide from it. You are outside. Your leprosy confines you to not being a creative, interactive sacrament. And so Jesus says, now I want you to be who you are. You don't define yourself by a physical defect. And there's all kinds of names and identities and things. You'll know it's a leprosy if it confines you from being shareable. So that in one way or another you say, well, I am this, so unclean, I'm not good for you. No. What Jesus says in of course I want you to be a blessing for my brothers and sisters. And don't let anything, what other people would call ulcerous, don't let it keep you confined and hiding and covering and separating. It's very interesting in the gospel, because at the end, Jesus says to the former leper, go and show yourselves to the priests, that their sacrifices didn't do it, faith in me did. That's going to drive the Pharisees crazy and be very, very much against Jesus, which gets him in trouble. But where does Jesus stay? Outside. It says that in the text. It's a beautiful statement of Jesus. He stays outside where the people are outside. The cripples. They're not normal. The blind, the lame, the deaf. They're not normal. To Jesus, normalcy is not a term. With what does it get replaced? Relational. That's the way we live from the Eucharist for others in whatever way we do it. It's we meet people, we're not afraid of people on the outside who have false identities, false definitions of themselves. And we, by our relationship with the outside, people of different facial features or colors or hairstyles or ethnic backgrounds, that's where we should be, because that's where Jesus still is. He's with the outside, calling people into community, into relationship, which would be the healing of that leper. It's not just for him. Any healing that we get from Jesus is meant for me, that I may be for others. Jesus makes me a we. Now that's the beauty of praying these days. And this coming Wednesday we start Ash Wednesday to not just to purify us, but to get in touch with the leprosies, the hindrances to my being relational, creative, sacramental. If I receive the Eucharist, I receive who he says I am, and he says, now go and live who you are in community. But come out to be with the people who are not in community too. You belong to a community that is ad extra, for the outside. And that's a real challenge for us. If we're going to receive the Eucharist, then we have to believe the Eucharist. And what the belief is, that I am who he is.